Hi, my name is Dionne Codrington. Welcome to Changemakers, the podcast. This special is a spin-off from the Black Changemakers, a CBC series that highlights folks from Quebec's Black communities who are giving back, making a difference, and inspiring others to do the same. Today, we have profiled 88 Changemakers. You can read all about our laureates' work online. Just look up CBC Quebec Black Changemakers. Over the course of the last 3 years, I found myself wondering what really makes someone a changemaker. So in this podcast, I'm taking a deeper dive into the DNA of these leaders. I want to know just what makes someone a changemaker, what's the source of their motivation, and just what it takes for everyday people to shift from self to service. Over the course of 4 episodes, I'll introduce you to some of our changemakers, all from different walks of life. And by the end of our conversation, I hope to uncover what makes them tick, who or what inspires them, and what keeps them going. But this isn't just about finding out how these folks became changemakers. It's also about understanding how anyone can claim space in the world and make a difference. When I invited these changemakers to chat with me, I asked them to choose places and spaces that were meaningful to them. Our walks took us from an old Montreal courthouse to Concordia University's campus in Montreal's West End.
Imagine if, people were to just look out for themselves. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be chaotic. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda was effectively stopped because of community.
In this episode, Moses Gashirabake. Moses Gashirabake is a lawyer with his own firm in Gatineau, Quebec. The night of our conversation, Moses was set to launch a genocide education guide, the initiative of one of the many organizations on which he serves as a board member. Moses is a young man in his 30s with a long list of accomplishments. I suspect that even as a child, he was always that kid who moved with purpose and carried a briefcase. He's always polished, has a warm smile, and he's that kind of guy who always remembers your name. To look at him, you would never imagine that Moses is a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, when nearly 1 million were mercilessly murdered. But that experience fuels his quest to help Rwandans, immigrants, and really anyone in need who crosses his path to not just heal, but thrive. You are involved in a lot of different initiatives. You have your own law practice.
Yes.
How would you define yourself?
I'm a Rwandan Canadian, a father, a lawyer, a husband, and a friend. And essentially, I'm a human being as well. So that definitely defines me because being human directs everything that I do.
So out of those roles that you just identified for me, is there one of those that is more important?
I think for me, all of them are important. It just depends on, I guess, the moment when I have to be a father, the moment when I have to be a husband, the moment that I have to be a career man, and the moment that I have to be in the community. So all of them mean a lot for me, and I dedicate, time for each and every one of them. But of course, family is priority number one. But I would say all of those, make me who I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're taking this walk today. It's springtime in April.
Yes.
You alluded to your heritage, and of course, for Rwandans, this is in April a time of remembrance.
Yes.
When we are thinking back to the million Tutsis who were killed in the genocide, where are your thoughts at this time?
This is definitely a very challenging time for my community and for myself. I lost a lot of family members, friends, fellow Rwandans in 1994 during the genocide against the Tutsi. So during the 100 days, it goes all the way to July 4th, when the genocide was effectively stopped by the Rwandan Patriotic Front. So it's a difficult moment, but at the same time, it's a time for reflection, for education, it's a difficult moment, but it's also a moment for action as well. Yes.
Can you take me back to what your family's experience was?
So, April 6th, the genocide starts.
The chaos and killing started last night after a plane was shot down just outside Kigali. Rwanda's president was on board along with the president of Burundi. They were both killed.
I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I had a normal childhood, you know, and all of a sudden, everything collapses and everything changes.
Tonight, the United Nations is also trying to deal with the violent turmoil in Rwanda. The killing there has been so brutal and relentless that even the Red Cross says it has rarely seen a human tragedy so great. 100,000.
I could hear gunshots, people screaming on the streets.
Witnesses say renegade soldiers and gangs of young men are roaming the streets, shooting and hacking people to death. Bodies still litter the streets, and these civilians who survive live in terror. United Nations peacekeepers.
The next day, on the 7th of April, we had people coming to our home because the Interahamwe and the Rwandan government had lists of people. So my family was on one of those lists. The lucky part that we had is, my dad was in business. He was contributing to society, so he had friends in the military and other places. So one of his friends was able to bail us out, if you may.
Yeah.
But, that was not the end. So there were many attempts, people coming home and vandalizing our gate and whatnot. And were it not for that particular friend of my dad, I wouldn't be here today. Within a week, my dad's friend organized for us to exit the country, so we escaped through the Congo, and then we ended up in Kenya. But on the way, I could see my neighbor's home has been torched, dead bodies on the streets, a lot of violence that I saw on our way out.
Yeah. You were how old at the time?
7.
7.
Yes. So I'm able to have that recollection. When you're 7 years old, that's when you start, forming your memories. I did not fully understand what was going on. All of a sudden, the country going into chaos, but I knew something crazy was going on, and there was a cause. So when I got to Kenya, because we got to Kenya in April, and the genocide continued on for 3 months. So we were following, and then you hear that your mother's sister, my aunt, was killed with the kids. You hear that a neighbor has been killed. You get news that a certain friend and all their family has been killed. So the trauma continued on for many years up until today. So that's sort of like a summary of what went on, and it has shaped, who I am and coming to Canada.
So at the young age of 19, Moses moved to Canada. He understood that injustice could be obvious, like the atrocities he witnessed in the Rwandan genocide, but he also recognized that injustice could be even more pervasive and systemic. And he vowed to learn how and why it happens.
So I resolved to study political science to understand society, and then eventually ended up continuing on to law school. But up until today, I really haven't found the answer. Right? Because injustices happen, even here in Quebec, in Montreal, in Canada, unfortunately. And it could be also visible and invisible. You walk into some neighborhoods, you can see poverty, right? In a country that has so much. Or it could be invisible, systemic anti-Black racism, people struggling to access opportunities because of their skin color, or refugees coming into a new country and they have to navigate the system to access education, jobs, even their status, by the way. So recently, Canada and the US signed an agreement. I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I did a course in immigration law. They signed an agreement where if a refugee claimant has landed through the US and they go through an irregular crossing, then they're turned back to the US. And Canada for a long time has been a safe place for refugees. And it's sad, these are people escaping violence and whatnot. And then they find themselves in a situation whereby, two countries are not deciding whether or not to take them in. So those are the issues that, I think about on a regular basis. I do corporate law, but at the core of who I am, I also like to contribute to help people that do not have the benefits and the opportunities that I have.
When I read your story, I was trying to kind of wrap my head around how does that 7-year-old move past that kind of trauma? Like when you witness just the very worst of humanity.
Yes.
What do you channel that allows you to move past that and still remain hopeful?
Yeah, I would say actually part of my healing journey, I think I was about maybe 21, 22, happened at Concordia University through one of my professors, a political science professor. We were in a human rights class, international human rights, and essentially the topic of genocide was covered in class. And when I made a comment, the professor after the class, pulled me aside and said, I encourage you to make more comments in class, comments that are academic, but comments that do have a lived experience type of thing. And then when I continued commenting in class and sharing with my fellow students, it became a healing journey. I had not talked about my experience ever. And then the professor was kind enough to invite me to a conference. I shared my story. And then from then on, it became easier and easier each time I did it. It was sort of like a catharsis through speaking to people, strangers. And of course, I wouldn't say maybe had I been a little bit older, it would have been a little bit more challenging. And I say so because my older siblings, my parents, they don't talk about it, right? So there are two types of survivors. There are those who decide to speak and there are those who decide to not speak. And of course, it's very difficult. You cannot compel someone to share their story. It's, you have to allow them to...
In their time.
In their time, yes. So the healing journey started then, and from being a naive undergrad student to now being a part of the Concordia community through one of my professors. I ended up contributing in different national and international conferences on genocide and international human rights. And then that, gave me some of the tools that I'm using. Some of them are human, others are professional, others are, through activism and whatnot. And I think Canada as a country has a lot to do.
As I listened to Moses, I started to think about the fact that there is tangible evidence of what makes him a changemaker. His work, volunteering, and activism. But I wondered just how aware he is that by sharing his story and making space for others to tell theirs, that those actions are also forging healing, connection, and perhaps even justice. So what would you say is the power of storytelling?
Stories are powerful, right? Particularly if these stories are told through mass media, going to as many people as possible, it can make a huge difference in changing society. And on the opposite end, it can also cause chaos. In Rwanda, hate for the Tutsi was spread through RTLM, which was a private radio that was supported actually by elements in the government to essentially spread propaganda and hate. Tutsis are cockroaches. They're responsible for the ills in society. And on the other end as well, media can be used to make a difference, to teach people that we can have differences in terms of color, origin, sex, name it, but we're all human, we're interconnected, and if we focus on that, our differences will be minimal and we will be able to have less conflicts. Unfortunately, I feel it's a tug of war between, the good and the bad, and unfortunately sometimes the bad overpowers the good. But storytelling is important, including what we're doing now.
Yeah. And, obviously, like we've seen and just with your own personal experience, that there can be some healing.
Yes,
there.
yes. There is healing in telling your story, because when you share, it feels as if you're giving away part of your burden to people who are listening. I think listening is quite powerful, and it can change people's lives, including my own, that was changed through sharing my story in a classroom, to going to Germany and Poland, to going back to Rwanda to talk about my story, and other places in Canada as well. It makes a difference, for sure.
So a lot of the work that you are engaged in, clearly a lot here, but even when I reached you to let you know that you were a change maker, I had to find you in Rwanda.
Yes.
Why has it been important for you to go back? I mean, apart from to visit family, but to actually do work.
Yes, Rwanda is home. They say east or west, home is the best. I mean, Canada is home as well, both Rwandan and Canadian. But the thing is, I had not been able to go back to Rwanda from 1994 to 2014, so that's 2 decades.
Yeah.
But as soon as I was able to, mentally able to handle going back to a place that was pretty much a failed state with violence and bloodshed and hatred and all of that. But as soon as I went back, I was actually quite shocked to see the transformation.
Yeah.
Clean streets, happy faces. That experience was quite positive in the sense that it showed me resilience over people. And it allowed me to see that, a society that lost more than 1 million people is able to bounce back. Economic growth, empowerment for women, youth. More than 64% of Rwanda's parliament is composed of women. 50% of the cabinet is women. Environmental sustainability. So the image for me was quite shocking, and I actually went on the invitation by the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, which was quite shocking. You leave a country because the government wants to kill you, and then you go back because now the government is saying the country is now peaceful, it's clean, it's rebuilding, come back. And since 2014, I go every year, and opportunities have come where I'm working in the private sector, working with the youth, and it's incredible. So it means a lot because it's home, but because I could also contribute to its socioeconomic development. Rwanda has not fully become what it wants to be, so there's lots of things that have to be done as well, and that's precisely why I go back to be a part of the transformation journey.
While Moses often travels to Montreal to try cases, he now makes his home in Gatineau with his wife and son. Gatineau, Quebec's 4th largest city, is a quiet enclave just across the river from the nation's capital. It's where Moses has established his own law firm, where he and his family have planted new roots, and it's a soft landing place when the world is anything but. How old is your son now?
2.
2 years old. When do you think that you will tell him the history? When do you think you'll share your story?
That's actually an interesting question. I've never thought about it. But I think when he is able to understand his, surroundings and all of that, but that's a conversation I'm going to have with his mother.
Yes.
Then we'll figure it out. But I haven't processed it and put a date and a time for us to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You talked about the fact that your parents still aren't able to have those conversations, and I'm sure that they're in good company with a number of people. Why do you think it is critical for younger generations to hear those stories?
It's critical because, we want to keep the memory, because unfortunately, the last stage of genocide is denial. So there's the act, and then you have many other steps that lead to a genocide. It's planned, it's committed, but the last crucial stage is denial. And denial, what it essentially does is to say it never happened. So to kill the memory of not only the victims, but among survivors and generations that come after. So talking to young people, educating young people, keeps the memory alive, and it allows for, telling the truth, because as they say, the truth shall set you free, and it allows you to forgive, right? Because if somebody commits a genocide and then they say it never happened, how would society move on? Then it means the atrocities could be repeated in the future. So talking about it is not only good for memory, for prevention, for healing, but it's also good for society to move on through forgiveness and rebuilding. And demystifying the lies and the inconsistencies that come with such atrocities.
We often talk about the resilience of children, their incredible ability to bounce back from adversity. But I wanted to understand how Moses could live through what he did and still find the strength to help others. I didn't expect to be tickled by his answer, one that revealed a shared experience. We were both prefects. When did you realize that you had the power to make a difference?
I think it's something that has always been ingrained in me. I went to elementary school in Kenya, and they have prefects, people who keep things in order when the teacher. So that, and for some reason, the teacher would take maybe a week or two to study the students and find out, who's submitting their homework on time and whatnot. And that sense of responsibility from the get-go made me understand, I can make a difference. I could help someone who's struggling with their homework to complete it. I could be there for people, and that they can also be there for me, right? So it's a give and take. So I understood, I think from the age of 7 when I got to Kenya. I mean, I was a foreigner, a refugee in a foreign country. But at the age of 7, there's also the gift of innocence. Right? Something crazy just happened. Within a week, you're in another country. You just move on.
Yeah.
The memories, of course, are there. They're vivid. But you're learning a new language. You're navigating. So I hit the ground running. I had to learn Kiswahili. I had to switch from French to English. I guess from when I was 7, I took responsibility, and I knew I could make a difference in a small way. And it's fulfilling when you see change and order and helping other people and looking at the positive results that come out of it.
I'm not sure how many people kind of recognize their ability to make a difference at the age of 7. Did you have a role model, anyone who modeled that behavior for you?
Yes, absolutely. My dad, I think I just watched him do whatever he did as a business person, as a community member. He had lots of discipline in the sense that he kept time, he helped a lot of people, and I would see the positivity that comes out of, respecting your commitments, contributing to your society. So I think my dad would be that role model. And then my mom was the disciplinarian, keeping things in check when my dad is doing his thing. So definitely my dad.
If there's one thing that I've recognized among our changemakers, it's that community is at the heart of everything they do. Even when their circumstances would forgive any desire to keep their head down and only worry about themselves or their immediate loved ones, they still feel compelled to serve. And while Moses has become somewhat of a big city mover and shaker, everything he does is shaped by a stronger together, it takes a village mindset.
What's the importance of community?
Without community, we live in a vacuum. Imagine if, people were to just look out for themselves. I mean, it would be chaotic. The 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda was effectively stopped because of community. Rwandans coming together and saying, this is not right. We have to stop it. Even when the international community could not do anything because of some of the embarrassments in Somalia and other places. So the timing was a little bit off. So Rwandans, the community came together. So community is a place where, change happens. People come together to create spaces, to create programs, or to be activists for the benefit of all. So for me, community is important, and the strength of a community is defined by its ability to stick together.
Can anyone be a change maker?
Yes, anyone can be a change maker. You do not have to be Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi or the big names that we hear about. I think you can be a change maker in your own neighborhood by cleaning the streets. If you see a plastic bag or some pollutant, putting it in the garbage, I think that makes you a change maker. So it does not have to be grandiose. You could do small acts that make a big difference. So anyone can be a change maker for sure.
Being a change maker has taken many forms for Moses. He started a club at Concordia University that secured funding to help student refugees. And when he was still a student, he helped organize mentorship sessions and classroom visits to encourage more Black students to apply to the law faculty. Since then, among a list of organizations, he has served the Foundation for Genocide Education and the Raoul Wallenberg Center for Human Rights, where he is a board member. And that's in addition to creating a healing center for thousands of Rwandans in Toronto.
Why do you think that you're a change maker?
I think I'm a change maker in the sense that I care about my community, and I think it's going beyond the me, right? So from me to we, how do we collectively make a difference? It's something that is, constantly at the heart of my actions, and the fact that, when you collectively come together, for example, in some of the organizations that I volunteer with, the Rwandan Canadian Healing Center, a lot of Rwandans are going through trauma, right? So how do you create spaces for them to heal? So the change making is identifying the problem, looking for a solution. Unfortunately, when we started in 2018, nobody really understood in my community and in other communities that are external, that creating a healing center where people could speak to each other or speak to a psychologist or a psychiatrist could make a difference because of the stigma that some communities attach mental health struggles with, even with people that went through a genocide that killed 1 million people. So the main challenge that we had was funding. So through some of the networks that I had, we created a not-for-profit organization that's headed by somebody who was going through the healing journey, a young man called Kizito Musabimana. He lives in Toronto, and we fundraised. And through our initiatives, 2 years on, we were able to set things off the ground, and we've raised over $700,000, and we've helped over 3,000 people that come to the Healing Center in Toronto, and we would want that to happen in other cities across Canada as well. So for me, that's change. People are not able to complete school because of the demons that they're dealing with. People are not able to perform at work. How do you change that in your own community? So for me, that's change making.
If somebody had told you 20 years ago that you would be having this kind of success and being able to raise those kind of numbers, what would you have said?
I wouldn't believe that. It's funny, a lot of the things that have happened were never planned. I never planned to end up in Canada. I'm here. I never planned to escape to Kenya. I spent 13 years in Kenya. So it's essentially making the best of your environment and not looking at the past, but actually looking at the present and making sure that the present can inform a better future. So I would definitely not have believed that we would be doing the work that we're doing in the community, but I'm really thankful that it's not just me, but there's so many Rwandan Canadians, Canadians at large that are helping, to push the work that we're doing, and for that I'm thankful.
Moses might have his focus on the present, but as he moves forward, he has made sure to reach back and pull others up with him.
We're sitting in the shadows of the Palais de Justice, the McGill courthouse.
Yes.
You were here for work, but earlier this week, some of that work that you did was actually pro bono work. Why is that important for you?
I mean, when I came to Canada myself, I couldn't afford a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that is personal to me. So we have a lot of newcomers to Canada, refugee claimants, and people that come and they don't have the means, and some of them fall through the cracks. Somebody tells me of a story, I'm like, this actually happened to me. I was looking for a lawyer. I was navigating the system. I came as an Anglophone in a French province. I don't understand, some of the information that's available only in French. When you go on the Quebec government website, unfortunately, some of the information is only available in French. When somebody comes to me and I'm not able to refer them to a place and I'm able to do the work, I'll do it for free. And it's a pleasure to do it. I mean, it's essentially also my Christian belief that we're supposed to give back to society, right? And my upbringing, when I saw my dad, educating strangers, giving them food and opportunities for work. And so for me, 10% of my time, or 15% to 20%, is only, 1 out of 10 cases that I do on a regular or on a weekly basis. So it's not actually significant if you look at it.
Okay.
Yes.
I think the people who you help would disagree about the level of significance for you. 7-year-old Moses, is he still with you?
Yes, and I think he's always going to be with me. We move through phases, but I think we're able to navigate the future if we keep a memory of who we were, because it grounds us.
Why are you here, Moses? What do you think your purpose is here?
To make a difference, to find answers to some of the challenging questions that I confront each and every day, and to be happy despite the craziness that we have to confront on a day-to-day basis. I think if we look at the good things that are happening, I think they inspire us to eliminate, the injustices in society and all the crazy things that are going on. So why do I live? To make a difference and to say something, or to be in the background and advocate for change, and that might save somebody's life.
You're not that old, Moses.
Yes.
You have packed in a whole lot of living into this relatively short lifetime. Is there a sense of urgency for you?
I think it depends on what you choose, right? You could be 70 and there's no sense of urgency for you, right? Depending on your life experience, depending on where you are in life. You could be 15 and do things that have not been looked at by people that are way advanced in their careers and in their life. I mean, look at people like Greta Thunberg, a teenager, right? Holding accountable people to do the right thing as far as environmental conservation and environmental protection is concerned. So for me, I think, of course, had things been different at the age of 7, I'm not sure. Maybe I would be doing things in a different way. But I think the sense of urgency for me is understanding the cost. And once you understand the cost, then you do not have any time to waste. I'll give you an example. In 1994, the international community failed. However, young people in their 20s decided to end the genocide. So the sense of urgency for me, I guess, it's a choice that you have to make. And then what's the cost of indifference or inaction? And they made a difference. They ended the genocide. Most of them were, young kids that wanted to see change. And that change, I'm able to experience it because my generation did something about it.
Given that, how do you keep going? How do you stay in the fight?
I love walking. I do long walks. I watch basketball. I play sometimes. You have to find free time and relax, right? I go to lots of community events. Talking to people for me helps me to keep going. And then seeing the results of the work that you're doing, with the Foundation for Genocide Education, creating a guide that has been adopted by the Quebec government, and now having it across Canada in the future, and hopefully in the States, to educate young people across, North American high schools, the ills of genocide, and of course, creating a seed in them so they can be able to be agents of change. So that keeps me going when I see, we've started a big problem, it's insurmountable, step by step. The results are what keep me going. And of course, finding time to relax and take a breather.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was 2023 CBC Black Changemaker Moses Gashirabake. I'm Dionne Codrington, and you've been listening to Changemakers, the podcast. The show was produced by Melissa Findera. For more on Moses Gashirabake and our other CBC Black Changemakers, visit the website cbc.ca/blackchangemakersqc. Thanks for listening.